You are tired of average. You want more out of life. You know you're capable of something greater. This show will help you become resilient in your home, at work, and in your community. Welcome to the Resilient Humans Podcast with your host, Kevin Wood. Welcome back to the Resilient Humans Podcast. And today's guest is somebody who knows what it means to crack wide open and then choose to rebuild. Jason Lyle is the founder of Sacred Grit, a space for men's healing, nervous system regulation, and real transformation that incorporates fire circles, breath work, and quiet conversations in the woods. He's a former pastor and CrossFit coach who spent 13 years guiding others through faith and fitness before facing his own inflection point: infidelity, addiction, and the long road back to himself. Now, through men's retreats and trauma-informed coaching, Jason helps others come home to their inner self. If you've ever felt like you've done everything right, but you still feel hollow, then this is the episode for you. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, my dude.
It's great to have you here. So we're going hot.
Do it.
If I met you 10 years ago, what would I have seen? And how is that different from the man that you are today?
Oh, man, great question. So that would have been 2014. I was right in the middle. CrossFit was a huge part of life at that moment. My best friend was going to the games. I think 2014 is the first time he went to the games, 13 or 14. So, we were 2 a day in and sometimes 3 a day in and running and swimming and trying to get ready for all that. I was a pastor. So I was, pastoring a church, and strangely enough, the church was in the same building that the gym was in. So, that's kind of
cool,
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of go back and forth there, and people from the CrossFit gym would come to the church. And, but the biggest thing was, man, I was just battling, a lot of demons in 2014. And that would be just, affairs and, that was the biggest thing, was affairs. And when you're a pastor and you're having affairs, you can imagine what that dichotomy is in the head, right? So, I was, the way I would have been different back then was probably a little bit, there's no other way to say it, but just kind of arrogant. CrossFit kind of brings with it a body shape and style that, if you're not careful, can really, convolute the old ego, if you know what I mean. And probably pretty arrogant and a lot bigger.
Right on. And how's that different from you in today's limelight?
Yeah, man. So and I'm sure we're going to get into some of this, but in 2017, I had an affair that ended my career as a pastor, and that led me to going into farming cattle and trying to sell beef, grass-fed beef, and some grain-finished beef, and just kind of hiding on a farm and, moving through different, stages of life and trying to figure out what's next. And so that led me to wilderness therapy, and which at that point in time, I was still not in a very good headspace. I was a wilderness guide in a wilderness therapy program. I wasn't in the program. I was working for the program. But anyhow, it was in that space where I met a man named Rob Gent, and I was adopted at birth. And I had, over the years, people would say, "Well, does it bother you that you're adopted?" And I said, "No, not at all." But I kept having these behaviors that, mainly around sex and sexuality and the inability to be committed to my wife. And so those just kept coming up. Over and over and over and over. They just wouldn't go away. And that kind of led me to a place of just kind of being done, being alive, just kind of like I just couldn't live inside of my own skin anymore. But I met a man named Rob Gent who taught me nervous system regulation. And that was through cold water immersion, yoga, breathwork, meditation. And so now, man, dude, just to be completely transparent, I just feel a peace over me that I've never really felt before. And here's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is being able to take a pause before I make big decisions. It's like before, man, I would have a thought, and that thought would immediately turn into an action. And then as soon as it turned into an action, I'd be like, why did I just do that? And I'm sure your listeners probably, yeah, I think the CrossFit days, you get so hungry and you're on this, a paleo diet, or you're trying to follow this regimen, and then, you might make a wrong decision or whatever, and you go, oh, why did I just do that? That's the way I felt all the time. It's like constantly just having this thought, action. And where I am today, man, is significantly further from that. I tend to be able to see my thoughts and catch them. And it doesn't mean that I don't always act on them, but it does mean that I act on those thoughts with purpose instead of just impulse.
Would you say there's a difference between reacting versus responding?
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's the difference between reaction and proaction, right? I think that reaction means that something happens and I have this kind of, well, lack of better words, reaction to it. I think responding means I have already made up my mind prior to this decision, the kind of man that I am. And so my response is determined by that decision of who I am. So it all comes down to a belief, right? Who I believe that I am. And a response means, for instance, here's a good for instance. About 2 years ago, I wanted to work a little bit further inside the primal responses that I have in my body. So I decided that every Monday and Thursday I would fast for 24 hours. So I'd eat dinner Sunday night, not eat dinner again till Monday night, eat dinner Wednesday night, not eat dinner again till Thursday night. And the reason why that is not for physiological changes. It is because I wanted to know what it feels like to wake up in the morning and say, I've already made this decision.
Mm,
So throughout the day, if I get hungry, it's not will I eat? It's oh, I've already decided I'm not going to. That's a response. A reaction is I just got to have it, I'm going to fast today because I feel fat. I feel fluffy this morning, so I'm going to fast.
yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
reaction. A response is going, I've already decided in this manner, and so that's what I'm going to do, regardless of what the circumstances are. And I mean, of course, that's got gray area in it, but I mean, for the most part, when somebody decides how they're going to respond to life, that's a premeditated idea of how they're seeing life, not an in the moment reaction to whatever stimuli they're feeling. That makes sense?
100%. And I can totally relate. I usually do it once a year, well, where I'll fast as long as possible. I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
up to like a 66 hours. And I don't, like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't do it for any physical benefits. It's not because I feel fat or, I just want to have this physiological response to it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a way to reset my mind to say, are you actually hungry right now? Or can you
Mm-hmm.
just delay that? Like, you
Mm-hmm.
don't need it. So if I'm driving home from a, long day at work, I don't have to pull into a fast food restaurant. I can wait the extra 10 minutes to make it home and have what I already have prepared. And so it's a way for me just to reset my mind. Like, you're not actually hungry. You're just trying to convince yourself that you are. So doing it with that responding as opposed to reacting that's a great way to practice it.
It is, man, and it makes me think about the word responsibility, right? I tell people,
Mm,
your primal reactions are your responsibility, and the word responsibility literally means your ability to respond, like your response ability. So if I'm responding to life and responding to this inner primal need of food, I need to have an ability to feel that and also hold space for that. And like you just so beautifully said, oh no, dude, I can wait 10 more minutes. I'll be home and I have bananas and almonds, or I've already meal prepped. I just go open the refrigerator and there it is instead of pouring into fast food and grabbing something. So yeah, that's it. That's, the responsibility instead of the reactability, that kind of go hand in hand, but
hmm
reaction is much more stimulated by something in our nervous system, and response is stimulated by something in our prefrontal cortex. And getting those two to talk to each other is the trick.
So why do you think impulse control is this missing link for a lot of people?
Yeah, that's awesome. Because here's the thing. And if you're a CrossFitter, and you are, and I'm sure you have a lot of them who listen to your podcast, CrossFitters have this unbelievable ability to shut our body response or signals off and just get right here in the brain and go, by God, I'm picking that bar up and doing one more rep. I know I feel the burn, I feel the pain, I feel this, I feel that, but I'm going to do this next rep, right? It's like pushing that metabolic threshold as far as we can because we know that's where the magic happens. But the thing about people who deal with addiction, and that's the main thing I work with, ish: addiction, depression, anxiety, grief, you name it. Men are dealing with all these things. And this is kind of a man thing. Like, so most men just shut our bodies off. And we come into the prefrontal cortex where logic happens. But here's what begins to happen is the body sends those messages up to the brain, and the brain goes, I don't want to hear that. You just take that shit back downstairs, and I don't want it back up here, right? Because the brain's going, we have things we have to do. We don't have time to feel our bodies. So you can look at the average American male, right? He's got this belly sticking out front and no rear end in the back. He's got high blood pressure, diabetes. He has all these different things that are ailing him because his body is trying its best to tell him something. And I would say that a lot of the addictive, impulsive behaviors that we have come from the fact that we're just simply not listening to our bodies. And here's the thing, man. Sometimes cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy makes it worse because we
Hmm.
go into the logical brain and we go, well, you just need to connect these two dots. But here's the thing, man, those signals that come up from the body into the brain via the limbic system through the amygdala and trying to get to the prefrontal cortex, they don't make sense. You know, if you, and it could be something for me, I was adopted, so I had separation issues at birth. And so when any kind of dysregulation to me immediately needed connection. That's what made me feel better, was have connection. And even though in my brain I could go, this is the worst idea I could ever have, my body just kept firing those signals in. My body said, this is what we need, that primal connection, right? That connection that even though it doesn't make sense, I got to have it to feel like I'm alive. But when I was able to, through the practices that I teach, connect my body to my brain through repetition, just like, you know, all the CrossFit metaphors are endless here, but through repetition and practice and do it over and over and over, I start to widen my window of tolerance for discomfort. And as I start to widen my capacity for, it's just like CrossFit. I mean, first time I ever did Fran, it took me like 12 minutes to get through it, right? And the last time I did it, 3 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that. But that is because, not because necessarily that my body got in better shape. It did for sure. But my mind, I could go, shit, I can go a little further, right? I can do one more rep. Somebody asked me the other day, when's the last time I ran a marathon? I was like, well, I think it was like 2016 or 17, but I could go run a half right now.
Yep.
And I've not ran a mile in, I mean, probably a year. I ride my mountain bike now and get a lot of weighted walks. But up here, there is no doubt that I can go do it because I have a window of tolerance that I know I can take mentally, that I can just push through. So if you think of nervous system regulation that way with impulse control, it's the same thing. I'm just widening that window for the ability to feel that desire to react, but instead I learn how to respond. And when I learn how to respond, I make decisions that are loving back toward myself and create the life that I want.
It's amazing. So we'll go back a little bit here. How do you notice personally when your nervous system is out of alignment? And then part two to this is then what do you do about it?
That's great. So I tell a lot of the guys that I work with, and so this is also for myself, is we have to resource ourselves. So the way that I feel my nervous system getting out of alignment is usually it comes through my body first, right? So my heart rate will speed up, my breathing will start to change. Most people would recognize this. If you're a guy, you might recognize it where you may see, some nudity of some kind. The first place you feel that's kind of in your chest or in your lower stomach. It's like a feeling. It's like, ooh, what is that? And that fires into the mind, right? So that same thing could be, somebody pulls out in front of you in traffic. You get a letter in the mail from in the United States, it'd be the Internal Revenue Service. So immediately it's like, what is this? And so it's more than what you can think, it's what you can feel. So when I know that my nervous system is dysregulated, is when I feel off. And that could be anxiety, depression. It could be I'm wanting to go eat a bunch of sugar. I
Mm.
quit drinking a few years ago, but that was one for a little while. Like if I found myself drinking a little bit too much, I could go, what is that? Like, what is causing that? Now, the way that I bring my nervous system back in check is every morning of my life, Kevin, I do cold water immersion. I get straight out of the bed. That's the first thing I do after the bathroom. I get in the ice bath. That is my first line of defense on impulse control. And cold water immersion gives me, in 2 minutes, it helps me close this prefrontal cortex down and attach it to my body. It's just, it's the easiest way to learn how to regulate yourself. From there, I do yoga, breath work, meditation, and then self inquiry with my journal. But all of those things together create a mind body experience. And so here's for me, when I feel myself dysregulated, I'll pause, take a big breath, a nice deep breath, let it go. And I'll just say to myself in my mind, just be here right now.
Mm.
Just be here right now. And when I do that, I can feel myself access all those years of repetitions. So I would say it's not much different than when you're doing, I don't know, Eva, and you're at round four and you have another set of pull-ups to do, and you're like, well, I have three more to do, but I just don't know that I can do them. You just jump up there and grab the bar and do them anyhow, right? Before you take off. So it's like knowing that it's there, but also knowing that you have the ability. You just need to have the balls to access the ability, right? And so it's like it's the same thing. The nervous system has the ability to hold it. I just have to remind myself that the nervous system has the ability to hold that feeling.
That's so cool. When why do you think men have trouble identifying what they're feeling or how they're feeling?
Yeah, because we're told to suck it up from birth, man.
So that's a learned behavior.
From very early on. But men don't cry. We don't have time to be hurt. There's a whole lot of explicits that get used in there. I grew up in a construction blue collar culture. You didn't have time. We were plumbers. You didn't have time to be hurt. I mean, you worked sick, broke fingers. I worked with broke ribs one time. I mean, it's just the way that you did it. And that kind of carries all the way through. I mean, you think about the military, you think about
Mm,
MMA, you think about anything that we would consider manly. And I know that's maybe not politically correct, but I mean, it's a lot of things that we would consider masculine energy drives that particular, firefighter, policeman. And I know there's ladies in those spaces, so I hope nobody gets offended by that. But for the most part, all of those professions that we consider masculine energy, they're all kind of have the idea behind them of, yeah, if you hurt, it doesn't matter. You need to just push through. And so most men don't have the ability to stop. And when their life falls apart, and that's when I see most men that I see, the wheels come off. They're going, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, I mean, the first thing you got to do is validate what you feel. Oh, shit,
mm.
I don't want to do that. Like, well, I mean, I understand that you don't want to, but that's where it begins, is to validate what you feel. So as men, I think as a culture, we've been taught how to just push it down and plow on.
So I'm in the fire service and I feel like this is starting to change. It
Yeah.
back in the day it was, you saw something traumatic, shove it down, don't talk
Yeah.
about it, just look the other
Mhm.
way. And we had a meeting last night. And at the end of the meeting, it's like, if you need help, if you need support, here's the chaplain. Here's who you can reach out to. Like, don't hide it, talk about it. And if you're not comfortable talking with this person, then talk to this person. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's some changes happening in those more masculine areas, which is good because
Yeah.
it's needed, especially in first responders. There's so
Oh, for
much
sure.
stuff that it's shoved down and deep, and then it comes out in various forms, like your personal relationships or your other activities that you're a part of. So it
Mhm.
can definitely play a huge factor in that.
Yeah, 9/11, as an unfortunate event as that was, really brought a lot of that to light because culturally we had a little bit of PTSD, right? In the culture, you could tell that in the way we started operating around airports and everything else. But then we
Yeah.
went to, some would say we didn't go to war, but we started sending a lot of boys over there that were coming home and going, hey, man, I'm not feeling right. So as a culture, we kind of had to start addressing it and looking at it, which has been a beautiful thing because, yeah, now you have first responders with resources to go,
Yep.
hey, I saw a kid dismembered in a wreck today, and I'm just supposed to go home to my two kids and look at them and be okay. So, yeah, but that's very true, right? It's the flashbacks. And I work with PTSD victims and dads who have, one of my best friends lost his son in an ATV accident, and he was just having a hard time holding life together. And we got his nervous system under regulation, and while it didn't fix the grief, it taught him how to hold that in his body, how
Right.
to be able to find life beyond the pain. And the same thing for PTSD, addiction, all that. But yes, it is starting to change, thank goodness.
So part of my coaching and how I help people with those stories, because they're all stories. They're images and words in our heads. Um, I'm a big proponent of writing those stories down. If it's
Hmm.
a thought in your head, there's a good chance it's like a marble in a dryer and it's bouncing all over the place, creating havoc and destruction. And I find when people write things down, they can slow it down because a lot of stories in their heads are fast and it's
Hmm.
destructive. And as soon as you pick up a pen, you write it down, you automatically slow down that story. And then people can breathe a little easier. They can have more rational thoughts and conversations after that. Um, what do you do specifically to help people with those destructive thoughts?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So we begin with the nervous system regulation. That's the first piece. And right now I'm working on an online course that people can access. And when they get into that nervous system regulation, they find most people find immediately they have access to that story, right? Because sometimes people don't have access to that story.
Mm-hmm.
They know the story that they're telling themselves, but they don't necessarily know the true story. So when they get the amygdala to close down and attach to the prefrontal cortex, a lot of times you hear like, "Oh my God, my dad used to beat me relentlessly," or they might say, "Yeah, dad used to hit me every now and then." I'm like, "Well, hang on a minute. Like, we might want to unpack that for a second."
Right.
So then, yeah, dude, I take them straight to the pen. And the three pieces that we use are honesty, curiosity, and self-love. Honest,
Bro, no way. Are
yeah.
you okay? Okay, hold on.
All right.
Say those again. I need this is important. Say those three again.
Honesty, curiosity, and self-love.
Amazing.
Honest, honest about where you are, curious about how you got there, and love yourself enough to get out.
Dude, in my nutrition coaching practice, those are the three principles that I make sure people sign off on. Like,
Are
you
you
have to
serious?
agree to those three things. Self love, I call it
Wow.
kindness. You have to be
Yeah, yeah,
kind to yourself. But those
yeah.
are the exact three things that I use sitting down with any new client.
Dude, that's awesome.
If one of those things is not present, then there's nothing I can do to help that person.
Same thing for mental health, dude.
Yeah,
It's the exact same thing. If you can't be honest about where you are, curious about how you got there, and love yourself enough to get out,
bro,
yeah,
that's it.
there's nothing I can do. And yeah, that's awesome, man. So yeah, the pen and the paper, I tell people all the time, you're having a conversation with yourself, and yourself is where the answers are. That's the thing,
Yes.
right? People will come to me and they're like, well, I just tell me what I need to do. And they don't say it that way, but I mean that's what they're
Yeah.
saying, right? They're
Yep.
saying, give me the Harry Potter spell so that when I leave you, I no longer have PTSD. I'm like, brother, those answers are in your gut, in your heart, and we've got to find that. And they begin to trust themselves through the reps. And I'm sure you find the same thing,
Yep.
right? It's no different. If somebody changes their diet and they get on the scale at the end of 5 days and they've lost 10 pounds, like, oh, wait, that's working. And then they go to the doctor and their cholesterol's lowered and their testosterone's gone up and they see the scale go down and those returns start to compound. And as those returns start to compound, they're like, all right, we got some momentum. Now you start to see somebody go, well, let me unpack this story a little further. Let me pull this back a little further. My life is getting put back together. I have access to a little more honesty. And that's when people would come to you and go, hey, really, to be honest with you, I was probably eating 2 packs of Oreos a day. I told you
Right.
it was, one. It was really probably two. So the honesty gets bigger, the curiosity gets deeper because they see the compounding returns and they love themselves that much more. And we're saying that in the context of your business health. Same thing in mental health. You let
Mhm.
somebody wake up happy 6 or 7 days in a row, they're like, shit, this is working, man. Let me keep going. Let me get deeper in this. And yeah, that's beautiful, man.
Oftentimes we talk about the motivation action cycle. And
Yeah.
so a lot of people start, they need to be inspired, then motivated, and then they'll take action. And it actually doesn't start there. It starts with action. Do
Mhm.
the action, then you're motivated to keep going and you're inspired to keep that action going over and over again. And so
Mhm.
it has to start with action. And for a lot of people, I had two people come through the door yesterday at the gym for the first time. And I said, I bet the hardest part was just opening the door. Like that's the heaviest weight in the gym is the front door. And they're like,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
And as soon as they sat down in my office and we started talking, you could see them like breathe a little easier and,
Yeah.
sit back a little more comfortably. I'm like,
Yeah.
you already did the hard part. The hard part was
Yeah.
walking through. Now it gets easy. So they're
Yeah.
like, all right, sign me up. Right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is I have a guy that I work with and I owe him this next statement couple of statements there. One is he says the magic that you're looking for is in the work you've been avoiding. I love that one, right?
Mm,
Just like the action is where the magic happens. And the other is when we were working on his second step work, and he grew up atheist. He's like, I'm trying to figure out what my higher power is. And he goes, oh, I've got it. My higher power is my next decision. Yeah, you're kind of right, because that determines what your future is going to look like. So that action, man, is so important. And we live in a world where it is easy to get philosophical and in our head about what should I do next and how should I do it? And maybe if I eat this diet, or maybe if I go to that therapist, or maybe if I try this. When really, dude, it's just about going, I'm fixing to put my foot in a direction and head that way. I tell my guys, pick it and stick it. Pick something that's
mm.
healthy and just go after it. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to start doing an hour and a half practice of yoga and meditation and breath work in the morning, but wake up and do five sun salutations and go to work. How did that feel? You did something. You started your day doing something, deciding to do something that is good for you. And the rest, you can't go downhill from there. I mean, you're going to take off from there. So, yeah, I love that.
I've read something or heard something before about what is anxiety or overwhelm. And it's either living in the past or looking into the future and avoiding what is happening right now. So if you can bring yourself from behind you or in front of you to what's in front of you right now, your anxiety and overwhelm will more than likely dissipate and you can
Sure.
focus. That's all you have. All you have
Yeah,
is right
it's
now.
all you had. Yeah, man, it's it. It's the only control you have in this world is right now. Living in the past is an exercise in futility, and trying to project the future
Mhm.
will drive you nuts. If you can figure, and that's, I mean, the logical brain's job is to keep us alive by remembering what happened and projecting that on what can happen. But that's the logical brain's one third of who we are. The other third is our body, and the other third is our soul. And those three things dancing in communion with each other is what makes us a whole human. And that is happening in the present moment of being, not doing. We are human beings, not human doings. I know you've heard that before, but it's a beautiful thing to remember.
Absolutely. So let's get into a story time here. What's one of the
Yeah.
most powerful things that you've witnessed happen at one of your retreats or in one of your coaching sessions?
Yeah, so I could tell you, so, man, I have so many stories, but the one that I think sticks out to me the most is I have a good friend, and I alluded to it a minute ago. We became good friends after this, but he lost his son in an ATV accident, and he was not there to see it, but was there to see it in the aftermath, and chose to see it. And so that was kind of stuck in him and in his head. And he had to, bury a 16-year-old son, and that's hard. And when he first came to me, we were on a hiking trip. He went with me and him, and we took a group of grieving fathers out. Unfortunately, we could find a big enough group to take out like that on hiking. And, we just started having conversations around what it meant to be able to feel trauma in your body and process it through your brain. Because, that whole thing about grief and something like that happen is it's really easy to go, why did this happen to me? Why did God let this happen? Or, what did I do to deserve this? All those different things. And so I put him in the cold water for the first time in the North Carolina mountains in a river. I mean, it was cold too. It was like, make your hands hurt cold. And we spent a couple more days together, and you could hear all the stories coming out around the campfire. But the biggest thing, he was on the verge of divorce, on antidepressants, struggling to get through his day to day. He's a lawyer, has a law practice, and so he was having to just close his door and say, guys, just leave me alone. I can't work today. And on his way home, he sends me this text, and it says, I don't know what you did to me, but whatever it is, all I want to do is go home and fix my marriage, get back to work, and start loving my family in the way that I can love them now, not what was. And dude, he has turned his life around. I mean, he's lost weight, he's gotten in shape. We went and hiked Machu or hiked the Inca Trail last year, went to Salcantay Pass, and and he has found his life. And, he'll say things like, I'll never not miss Riley, but I'll honor Riley with my life by,
Mm,
living fully. I have that. I have another guy who I put him in ice water, and he sent me a text one day. He said, "Thank you for my first sober birthday since I was 13 years old," and it was his 33rd birthday. He had never been able to find
Wow.
sobriety since he was 13. He was smoking meth in the morning and shooting heroin in the evening. That's how he was getting up and going to bed since he was 13. And he's coming to a men's retreat. I met him through the hiking trips, but he's coming to a men's retreat here in I think we're about 2 weeks away from it now. And, he's got a steady job. He's, filing his taxes. He's got a girl. I mean, he's like put his life together. It's just strictly through figuring out how to attach his nervous system to his prefrontal cortex. And so, yeah, I've got a friend of mine who has Parkinson's disease. I have a video of him just with these severe tremors. And when he drops down in the ice water, they just completely go away.
Mm,
And while that's, ice water doesn't, certain nothing cures Parkinson's, he has found a way to, in the midst of dysregulation, when he's really just struggling to be okay, because that's a heavy diagnosis, just go, hey, I'm okay. I can be here right now. Dude, I could just keep going on and on and on. We just, lots of recovery stories, people who have come off. I've got one guy who had a, pretty devastating porn addiction, who's found his way to sobriety. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful process for people to be able to find rational thought that they can download into their body.
that's very cool. I was on your website perusing, and I
Yeah.
noticed there was a quote on your site. It said, real transformation comes not in the spotlight, but in the unseen work of staying. What does
Mhm.
that mean to you?
Well, that means that for most people think that there's going to be this moment where the lights come on. It's like, oh, I'm so much better. But to me, the power of change means that I can just stay in the grit, man. I can stay in the work. I can stay in the pain cave, as they say in CrossFit. I can get in that ice water and I can just stay. And when it hurts, when I'm depressed, when I'm anxious, I can sit down on my meditation cushion and just sit with it and go, this kind of sucks. So I could give it a voice. And not only that, once I give it that voice, I can go, but I am the only one who can change that. And so let me make that next decision that's moving me toward that. It doesn't mean that we don't ever, make poor decisions that we're trying to medicate ourselves with. I mean, we all struggle with that, but it means I'm making less and less of those. And it means that I'm able to be still. And that stillness to me is about finding it in the center of my being, right? It's like being able to resource in and of myself this peace. There's a verse in the Bible that, and I wouldn't say that I definitely do not subscribe to mainline evangelical Christianity anymore, but there's so many of those verses of the Bible that stick to me from seminary. And one of those was, there's a peace that surpasses all understanding and guards our hearts and minds. And that's what I want people to access, regardless of what they believe about God, Jesus, Catholicism, Islam, Buddhism, it doesn't matter, is that in and of ourself there's a peace, and that's the stillness that I'm talking about. And that peace is being able to go, I'm okay. You could feel it in CrossFit, right? It's like you get this complete, almost ready to pass out feeling, and you stand up, drop the bar, look at the wall, and when the room quits spinning, you go, I'm okay. And you reach down there and grab the bar again and get another 2 reps, right? So that's what I'm talking about. But being able to do that specifically in mental dysregulation.
That's so cool. And you mentioned the word grit. What does
Yeah.
that mean to you? We hear that often, especially in the, paramilitary type of stuff, like, grit, hard work, da da da. What does it mean to you specifically?
Grit means being able to bear down and do the hard work even when you don't want to. And, that sounds antithetical to what I teach sometimes, because I'm teaching people that, you need to feel and, be able to let those emotions move. But dude, just like you said a minute ago, sometimes you just have to put your head down and go to work. And that means that you have to do the hard work of self-inquiry. So yoga, meditation, breath work, cold water immersion, those things are beautiful. But then I got to go inside my own soul. And when you get inside your own soul, if you don't know that landscape, it can be terrifying when you get in there. But it's having the grit to go, you know what? I was an adulterous pastor for all those years, and I do not want to be that anymore. So let me get out of that. Instead of trying to convince myself that I'm something that I'm not, let me be honest about what I actually am. Curious about how I got there and love myself enough to get out. And that is grit. When I can teach men how to love themselves enough to make loving decisions back to themselves, which sometimes means you have to look at people you love and go, no, I just can't do that anymore. I have to go do this. in order to love myself so I can bring the better version of myself back to you. A lot of guys will say, my wife gets upset. I'm like, well, listen, man, you just have to show her there's a better version of you coming back. If you go on a retreat for a weekend, if you go on a hiking trip for a weekend, if you spend the money to have coaching sessions with me, you have to show her that this investment that you're putting in yourself is you're loving yourself. So if you're not handing her back a better version of yourself, then, maybe you do need to rethink what you're doing. But the goal of this is you are creating grit inside of your own mind, body, and soul to be able to hold space for yourself and love yourself enough to be the best version of yourself.
Very cool. And you talk a lot about nature and being outside. How does nature play into that healing process and your coaching work?
Good question, because most of my coaching sessions are over Zoom. I uh, I encourage men to put their feet in the grass, man. And
Mm,
and the thing about nature is this, we sit in these manufactured homes and concrete jungles, and we drive down the road in a steel missile that's going 70 and 80 miles an hour sometimes. And I just got home I got an elk hunt every year out in Colorado. I take guys out there that they either donate to Adventures in Recovery or they're friends of mine, but we always go out there and hunt elk. And here's the thing about being in nature. Nature don't give a shit about you. I mean, there's no thermostat I can go turn down if I get too hot. There's no thermostat I can turn up if I get too cold. There's no running water anywhere that I can go take a shower. There's nowhere to go use the bathroom and flush it. There's no refrigerator to go get food out of. There's no stove. There is a stove, but not the kind I can have in that kitchen you see behind me, right? So
yeah.
nature makes us bend toward it when in the normal world we live in, we bend everything to us. I can
Mm,
go turn on the microwave, I can go adjust the thermostat, I can turn on the water. But we go spend 2 or 3 days in nature, we just start to learn I'm a little bit smaller than I thought it was. And, I told somebody here just recently, you hear about the big deal right now is psychedelics. Everybody's talking about psychedelics, and I'm not certainly not against or for. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but people say, it just makes you feel so small. I'm like, well, clearly you've never spent the couple of nights in the Rocky Mountains. You want to feel small, you, you go
yep.
sleep up under a 14,000-foot peak where you can hear boulders rolling down in the middle of the night and think, God, I hope that doesn't hit the tent, or a lightning storm happens. You'll feel small. And so to me, that's what nature does. It just gives us this feeling of, I'm not the only thing in this world that can, wreak havoc.
That's true. I find nature just levels the playing field. Doesn't
Mm,
matter who you are. If you consider yourself upper class, middle class, lower class, you're all the same when you're in nature, and it
yeah.
it really just takes away all of your shields that you have.
Mhm. Yeah. You'll definitely find out really quick what dysregulation feels like for
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. So we also record these in video, so they're going to be a YouTube. And I've noticed that you have a few tattoos on your arm. Are there,
Yeah.
are there any tattoos that mean anything to you that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, man. So the one there is, I don't know if you see, it's a phoenix rising from the ashes, and there's the tree that signifies the old life, and the phoenix that signifies the new life, and that's my kid's handwriting. I love you, Dad, and I love you, Daddy. So just this idea that, you can rise, you can change, and the old man can be the fuel for the new man. And then I got my dad's handwriting on my right bicep, my mom's handwriting on my left bicep. And mom's is the grace has brought me safe this far, and grace will lead me home. Dad's is a verse out of Isaiah, make beauty out of the ashes. On the left forearm is a deer and a rainbow trout, which are things from my childhood. Deer hunting and trout fishing has always been a love of mine. So it just reminds me that I need to always be a child, and even at 54 years old, sometimes I just need to get out in the woods and be a child. And then the owl on the right forearm is wisdom. It's about making sure that I'm making wise choices. So, I'm not sure that tattoos qualify as wise choices all the time, but we're going to go with that anyhow.
I have my next one actually booked for tomorrow. It's so funny. So,
uh,
yeah,
nice, nice. I love them, man.
that's cool. This has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to share with our listeners that we haven't talked about yet?
Man, just, check out the Sacred Grit podcast. All these things that I talk about, Kevin, I talk about on the podcast freely. And they're short. I do Sacred Sunday, which is usually like a philosophical, spiritual idea around something in recovery. And then Gritty Wednesday is all about having practical application, what people can do with it. And, I'm here for anybody who wants to give it a whirl. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. We can sit down and have a conversation about what it means to get nervous system regulation and find some sacred grit.
Very cool. Well, speaking of practical, this podcast is also about being practical in what we do. So we'll lead into this. I'd like to hear what your definition of resiliency is for our resilient humans that are listening.
Yeah. Resiliency to me, and the way that I use the word resilience is really kind of hand in hand with grit. A resilient human to me is somebody who is able to, once again, make loving decisions back toward themselves, which isn't always the most popular opinion in our culture, and then hold that boundary for that loving decision. So, I'll use Jim as a prime example. Most people in the American culture, and I'm sure Canada would probably be very similar, our lives are busy and information is moving. And we would all say, "Oh man, we've got AI, we've got these devices, we have all this stuff. We have more time. We just work more hours. They don't have anything to do with more time, which should, right? But it doesn't. It means, oh, I don't have to do that now. Whoa, look, I can go do this. Resilience means that I'm going to say, today, I'm going to be the best version of myself. And once I make that decision, that's how I'm going to respond to life. There's to go back to the beginning of our
Tying
conversation.
it back. Yeah.
That's right. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do a cold plunge. I'm going to eat good food. Resilience means that in a world that is trying to pull me away from those things, I'm going to stand with those things anyhow. So resilience to me is all about self-love, loving kindness back toward myself to be able to go, no, this is what I need to be me. This is what I need to be happy, healthy, and whole.
I had a conversation with somebody recently about that, and it's for whatever reason, the way society views it, but they see that as I'm going to the gym and I'm doing all these things for me as selfish. And that's seen as a bad thing, being selfish. I see it as being a good thing.
Yeah.
You are focused on you because only you can help others if your cup is full. They in the airplanes, you have to put your mask on before helping other people. And it goes in the same way. So I believe it is okay to be selfish in that you are taking the best care of yourself because only then can you start helping other people.
I have found that most people who are not selfish in that space, they become martyrs. And
Mm,
so when they help somebody else, like, oh, I'm just suffering. I'm suffering so that I can come
yeah.
help you. Well, that means that you're just trying to get something back from somebody else because you've helped them.
Right.
But if in and of yourself, you have already found a space of love, acceptance, peace, all those things that you already have, man, you help everybody else for free. It's like I don't need anything else from somebody else because I already have it in and of me. It doesn't mean that I don't want love from someone else or connection from someone else, but I'm not coming to them because I need them. I'm coming to them because I want them, because I've already found what I need inside of me. And we've made narcissism selfishness. We turned all
Mm,
those. They're just a narcissist. All they think of is themselves. I've learned the difference, Kevin, between thinking less of myself and thinking of myself less. And that's two very different things. And when I think of myself less, I actually find that I can do that when I'm thinking of myself more. So I'm taking care of myself, I'm meeting my own needs. I'm exercising. I'm doing the cold plunges. I'm, interacting with my journal. I'm going to my therapy sessions when I need to. I don't really think about myself anymore because I'm being proactive about taking care of myself. So there's really nothing to think about. I've already pre-made all these responses. Going back to our fasting illustration, I've already decided the person I'm going to be and I'm making the steps to be that person. I can kind of let go of thinking of myself and I can just move through life and love people for free. But when I don't take care of myself, when I eat the wrong food, do the wrong things, travel in the wrong circles, lay around on the couch and binge watch Netflix, 4 or 5 hours every night, all I do is think about myself because I'm thinking about, gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Gosh, I shouldn't have ate that. Gosh, I shouldn't have went there. Gosh, I shouldn't have talked to them. Gosh, I shouldn't have smoked that. Gosh, I shouldn't have took that. That's all I do is think about myself because the brain, the amygdala is going, we need to survive, but because it knows you're killing yourself. right? It knows that. And so it's downloading into your brain, we need to do something about this. So you just think about yourself all the time. But when you're proactive or responsible, you're able to go, you know what? I'm already doing all those things. So I don't really have to think about me. I've already thought about me. Yeah. It's hard for people to accept, but dude, it works.
Jason, you have a beautiful message, and I want to really thank you for coming on and sharing that with our listeners. It's been very insightful. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest episodes, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.